Hey, everybody, and welcome to And Action episode 38. I'm Tommy DiNucci, and conspicuous by his absence is my co host, Mikey Messier. If you've been following along, Mike has been moving, and he's in the process of, doing the unfun, unenviable task of gathering up all of his stuff, packing it up, and moving from one location to another. So, Mike isn't with us today. But we're not going to let the show stop. The show must go on. Today, we're going to be talking all about a movie I worked on last summer called Alarmed, which is now available on TUBI. You can stream that one free and check it out. So, kind of a fun chance today to talk about a movie that really just came out a couple months ago. It's a fresh one. So, I'm excited to talk about that. Before I get into that, just going to tell you guys a little bit about what I've been doing, what's going on. Want to thank everybody for subscribing to my YouTube channel. We just got over 375,000 views. We're making our way, marching our way towards the 500,000 kind of goal that we have. So thanks for watching. Have a lot of really cool Johnny and Clyde behind the scenes clips that I've been putting up there on my YouTube channel. Johnny and Clyde's a movie that I directed starring Megan Fox. It's coming out everywhere in the United States on May 5th. It's currently out in a couple of markets. You can actually see it if you're in Australia. So my friends down under, you can check that one out right now. But everyone here in the US, sadly going to have to wait until May 5th. But we're still going to be promoting a lot of it. I'm putting, like I said, I got a lot of great Johnny and Clyde behind the scenes footage that's going up on my channel. So you can check that all out and get a little glimpse behind the scenes. I would say out of all the movies that I made, Johnny and Clyde was probably the most thoroughly covered in terms of like behind the scenes footage. I had my assistant, Mike Braga. Shout out to Mike Braga. He covered a lot of the filming process. And even, I've always been I'm a big story guy on my Instagram. Can't help but create that content. So I was just shooting a lot of behind the scenes video. And it's kind of funny because, like, when you're a director, it's like a lot of times, like, you do have that downtime where you're kind of just like, all right, well, those guys are working on the lights over there. I've already had my conversation with the talent. They know what they're doing. Camera knows what they're doing. I guess I'll make a story. And, you break your camera out. And it's not just for story stuff. It's for nostalgia. It's, someday you're going to want to look back on this and check it out. So I'm glad I have a lot of great behind the scenes Johnny and Clyde content. Why don't you go over to my YouTube channel and check it out? Posting a few videos a day. And look at this. We have a mystery man here, one pro wrestling fan. Have a good show, brother. See you next week, Mikey. Good luck with the move. That's one of my co-hosts here, Mikey Messier. It's one of his other YouTube channels, aliases. So thank you, Mike. We appreciate that. And we will miss you this week. But next week, you'll be back on. We're going to be talking about Mr. Birthday. So that'll be fun. So yeah, I've been posting a lot of Johnny and Clyde footage, behind the scenes stuff in preparation for the May 5th release. I'm excited about that. Also, I have a pilot that I'm working on, a little TV pilot, and I'm really excited about, called The Florist, which is about an unlikely father and son duo that are basically contract killers. They're hitmen. It's a family business, and what they do is they take care of problems that people have. But it's kind of fun because the dad is just a really sweet older man, and he's a really great florist, and nobody really sees it coming when he starts to get violent and deadly. So I'm excited about that. We're shooting a 3-day pilot at the end of April. I've raised some funds for it. I've got my crew together. I'm about fully cast, and I'm really excited. I've never done a television pilot before. I actually, got on the phone, on the Zoom, I should say, with my agent, and I just wanted to kind of pick her brain and be like, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, raising funds and making my own pilot and then having you try to pitch it for me. And it's pretty cool. I'll give you a little bit of inside information directly from my agent. She was like, listen, Tom, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You should be creating content at all times. And a lot of people might not know this, but there are very few and almost no shows that currently get picked up just based off of a written piece of material, just based off a script, or just based off a treatment. Almost everything has some kind of proof of concept video, whether it's a 2-minute pitch trailer or even a full pilot like what I'm doing. So basically, she said, that's actually exactly what I should be doing, and it's the norm. Like, you should be creating visual representations of your concepts. And it makes sense, right? Because, like, if I'm some executive and I've got to, watch probably 100 pitches in a day, and I'm just throwing that number out. I don't know. I'm not an executive, but you got to watch a lot of shit in a short period of time. You're not gonna be reading 100 scripts in a day. It's impossible. But you could watch, maybe 100 one-minute teasers or 2-minute teasers and kinda sift through that and, actually get a visual representation of what you're buying. So I'm excited for this pilot. I'm excited for The Florist. That's all gonna be going down at the end of April. I've got a little mystery project that might be going this summer. I can't really talk about it for a number of reasons. One, because it's just not concrete enough. I don't want to get myself too excited, but the arduous task of being a filmmaker sometimes is the mental aspect of it, because there's all these great opportunities, and they're going to happen. You just don't know exactly when they're going to happen, and the timing of it all becomes a little bit of a game. And sometimes the timing gods can be unfriendly, and there's these odd situations where it's like that phone won't ring for a long time, and then suddenly the phone rings with two or three different things at the same time, and you have to pick one. So that's just life, and you kind of sift through it the best way you can. So we got a pilot coming up. We're excited about that. But today, the real reason why we're here is to talk about a movie that I had a lot of fun working on. We're gonna get into it a little bit more. It's weird. Like, I was going through some personal shit while I was acting in this movie. So at the time, there was a lot of ups and downs, but now looking back on it, it was a really fun experience and a nice run. But this movie is called Alarmed. It was shot in the heart of Connecticut, uh, and it stars Pooch Hall, Brittany Baker, Chris Whitcomb, Eric Allen Kramer, Eric Lutz, Juliana Robinson, Forrest Qualia, Joey Ambrosini, and of course David Gear, who also produced the movie. David Gear, we've talked about it. I think we give David Gear a weekly shout out on the show. And David is sort of the unofficial, he's an unofficial mayor, or I should say governor of Connecticut. He has a lot of deep ties with a lot of people in the state, and frankly can get things done when it comes down to locations, when it comes down to getting vehicle picture cars, talent. David is very resourceful, and he utilized a lot of those skills on this movie Alarmed. And not just David, of course, but the entire team. Really great producing staff. Chelsea Vale, Jacob Cooney, co-producers Chad Verdi Jr. and Paul Luba. A lot of familiar names on this one. It's kind of cool to see all the dots get connected. For example, Jacob Cooney produced this movie. And if you go back in the archives, we've talked about it before. We made a movie called Merry Xmas together. And Jacob was actually my director in that one. He directed me. So there's a lot of ties in this industry, and there's a lot of, again, it's almost like a coach, to use a sports reference. It's like a coach who's going to put together a team, and it's like, well, you want to work with players that you've worked with before, and they're reliable, and you know what you're going to get out of them, and ain't going to be any funny business. So I was cast as Petey, who is kind of he's on the wrong date at the wrong time. This poor bastard was just trying to get dinner with this girl that I think it's their first date, and shit goes awry. But let me give you the little blurb here, the little summary of the film. When parents Janet and Sean leave for a much-needed weekend getaway, masked men bypass their high-tech home security system to hold their teen son hostage. Under threat of losing their son, the couple follow a series of cryptic instructions that land them at Janet's office with one final order: to kill her boss. Wow. Heavy stuff. Um, Ariana Pacheco checking on in. It's definitely a fun movie. No, thank you very much. I appreciate you checking that one out. It was, you know, I like movies like this that have a sense of, the tone is interesting because, yeah, there's violence and there's gunplay and there's all kinds of, potential life-threatening situations. Yet the movie never takes itself so seriously that, I don't know how I can say this without, I'm not trying to remove the teeth from the film, but at no point do we really feel like anything dastardly is going to happen. It has this almost light kind of tone where, like, you feel like the bad guys aren't going to get away with this shit and the good guys are going to prevail. This isn't going to be. I've been watching a lot of Abel Ferrara films lately. I've been watching a lot of dark early 90s crime dramas. And usually in those movies, the hero, so to speak, the protagonist, he doesn't make it out. So this, and you almost get that feeling right from the beginning. One of those kind of films, you're like, oh shit, this is dark. Motherfuckers are gonna die in this movie, and it might be some of our favorite people. When you're watching Alarmed, you don't have that feeling. You're not like, oh man, they're all gonna die, and I'm gonna watch it happen. So it's got that lightness to it, where it's like, yes, the bad guys are encroaching on the good guys' territory here, but let's be honest, we all know that they ain't gonna get away with this. So it's light, it's fun, it's comedic. Pooch Hall does an amazing job in this one. I had never worked with Pooch before, but I had seen his work, and I was definitely excited to get in there and chop it up with him. We have a couple of really cool scenes together, and I remember him being really like gracious in one sense, where without getting too ahead of myself on the whole story, it's a situation where sometimes on these scripts they get thrown together kind of fast, and some of the dialogue, there's never really that chance to. This isn't like old school Hollywood where we're gonna get the actors together in a room and yes, 6 months before production, we all sat down with the draft and recorded our reading, and then the writers were there and they made their adjustments based on the actors' instincts. That shit doesn't happen. We don't have the time for that on these movies. So that kind of workshop stuff, actor workshop stuff, happens on the fly. So there was a scene where it, kind of wasn't working. It was like 10 pounds of dialogue and an 8-pound dialogue bag, and it was just too much. And Pooch wanted to cut some stuff, and it ended up being like a couple of my lines. And I think I probably only had 8 fucking lines in the whole movie. So it's like, you don't want to cut 2 of them. It's like, well, man, that's kind of my, I'm losing a lot of, for me, that's like 20% of my whole line, all my lines. So I kind of made a joke like, hey, I'd really like to get that line in if I could. Maybe there's a way that we could work it in. And it was cool. He actually looked at me and he realized, like, oh shit, like by suggesting what I just suggested, I basically ended up removing a potentially funny moment from this guy's character, this guy being me. So it was pretty cool. He actually looked at me and he realized, he kind of said, all right, you know what we'll do? You say this, I'll say this, and we'll just cut this part here. So he threw the ball back to me a little bit. He wasn't just like, fuck that, we're not doing this, fuck your line. He allowed me to get my comeuppance and get in my little spot there. So that was pretty cool. I was excited that Pooch was again, kind of there's a give and take to acting. Some actors just take. Pooch was willing to give a little bit as well, which was cool. Ariana says the man has the best first dates. The man is the best first date story, and from his character perspective, the movie is a great rom com. It's true, like my character will forever be able to be like, guys, you want to talk about a bad first date? Yeah, I think I got that one covered. So yeah, basically, let's talk about it. My character Petey is dating this girl, and her best friend basically gives her a call, kind of like a little
I don't want to say full on distress, but just like, hey, my teenage son's at home. Can you just check on him while we're gone, kind of a thing. And then while we check, there's a home invasion in progress, and we are smack dab in the middle of it, and we end up getting captured too, and then end up fighting our way out with Pooch and his wife, played by Brittany Baker, who turned in a really great performance. And I got to give a special spotlight to Chris Whitcomb, who plays the son in this movie. Chris and I have worked together on a bunch of projects. He's a very talented actor, but also just like a great guy and the kind of person that you want to be around on set. Very supportive. We actually just did another movie together in January, and it was cool. Like little things like this that kind of they touch you right here. Like he was done for the day and totally could have left and went to his room or whatever. And I saw him hanging by monitor, and I was like, I said to somebody like, "Oh, Chris is still hanging around," and I think it was the director actually told me. Shout out to Glenn, the director. He was like, "Oh, Chris said he wants to stick around and wants to watch your stuff. So he really likes watching your work." And I was like, "Oh man, that means a lot. Get out of here." So like, it's a team when Chris and I work together. So it was fun to he had a huge role in this movie. He plays pretty much the lead. He's the boy. He's the kid that kind of sparks this whole conflict in a way. Um, and he has a great deal of work in the movie, just in terms of like lines to remember, blocking to remember, stunts that he had to do. So this was kind of like a coming out piece for him in terms of just like Chris is a guy who can handle that. He can handle a sizable role. Ain't just a day player. Our dear friend Mike says the King of Cromwell is DG's official title of record. That is a fact. It's actually, I think that's on his birth certificate. Guys, I've got to pause for a second. I don't have Mike here to shoulder the load, so I've got to do things like breathe occasionally. Ah, there we go. I've got to drink some water, and please don't make fun of me, because what's about to happen is only going to come off as some kind of a sight gag, or like it's prop comedy. But my sister, who just had a birthday last week, happy birthday, Sarah. Shout out to Sarah. She's such a wonderful person that she actually gave me a gift on her birthday. She came into my house with this big jug of water, and it's a cool, yeah, funky water bottle. I said, "Oh man, that's really cool. Do you want one? I'll order you." She takes your phone out and orders me one, like right there on the spot. Like that's the kind of generosity my sister has. So that said, it's the biggest water bottle I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's basically the size of my torso. So you can hold. It's basically the equivalent of a 55-gallon drum, and you can stay very hydrated. I press this little button here. It's got a little flip top. Look at this. Ready? Click that in. See that button right there? It took me this morning. I filled it up. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little tired. No coffee. Took me a couple minutes to figure out how to open this up. Hold on, my phone's ringing and it's someone really annoying. I want to punch him in the face. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Took me a good couple minutes this morning to figure it out. There's a button here. I'm pulling this thing. I'm fucking ripping at it. And then I just realized, boom, little button. And then I know what you're thinking. That's a heavy jug to have to hold up every time you're drinking, but there's a straw, man. It's got a straw. It's got a straw built into it. And it comes with a backup straw in case you break yours. So this is a fine water bottle, and it's fucking massive. Hydration is key. So might have to stop and take a drink every now and then. Okay, what do we got? What do we got? Can you finish it in one gulp? Ah, man. If I did, I think I would turn into like a puffer fish, and I would just like blow up and fill up with water like a balloon. Um, no, this is actually all vodka. Yes, I'm sorry. This is my morning. Roughly 92 ounces of vodka. It's a good way to start your day off. Hey, man, the movie industry is stressful. All right, back to the movie. I'm hydrated. I'm feeling good. All right, so this movie was a lot of fun. We shot it in 14 days. I was only there for 4. So this was one of those things where, look,
sometimes you get that fear of missing out where you're like, oh man, I wasn't there for that day. So this one was fun to like go back and watch because there were definitely I was there for a significant chunk. Like I said, I think I was there for 4 or 5 days out of the 14, but there was still plenty that I missed. And actually, I was going back and forth during this movie. Like, this was a crazy fucking time in my life because I was going back and forth between this movie and a movie called Sins of the Preacher's Wife, which will be coming out on TV later on this year. So I was doing kind of double duty and just traveling a lot back and forth between Connecticut and Rhode Island, which again, it's not like I was going across the fucking country, but it's still a couple hours in the car back and forth. You do that twice in one day, that's 4 hours. It wears on a man. So some other cool things to note on this one. I had great wardrobe in this movie. I was very excited about the clothing that I got to wear. And I remember, just actors like for a transformation tip. When I read the script, there wasn't a lot on the page, right? And that wasn't a bad thing. Um, Sometimes if a script has your character a little underwritten, you might be disappointed because you don't have as much to work with, but in a way you should actually be thrilled because what that means is you have a clean slate to create and develop and make that character your own. And the big word there is personalize. You can really like bring a lot of yourself, if it makes sense, to the part. And in this part, it made sense. But I didn't want this guy to be like a big muscle head. I didn't want him to be like a gym guy. I just wanted him to be like a regular dude. So I remember like a couple weeks out doing a lot of cardio and kind of like cutting back the calories, and it ended up really paying dividends because the wardrobe that I got to wear in this is gonna sound funny, but like I like to just be very open on this show. They got me like a lot of really tight fitting clothing, and like had I not like did that little extra cardio and did that little extra cutback, like calorie cutback, the probably 3 4 weeks before this, I don't even think I would have fit in it. I wouldn't have felt comfortable in it. I would have been like, "Oh, man, I don't know about this." Um, but there is something about, again, like when you look good, you feel good, and I do think that translates on screen sometimes. So, I've always if I have time, obviously sometimes you don't have time. Sometimes you get cast in a movie and you got to go shoot like two days later. But if I have time, like I always treat a role in a movie like a fighter treats a fight. And I try to like, okay, I got 3 weeks to get in crazy shape for this. Because here's the thing, like you suffer for a little bit, suffer for 3 or 4 weeks, because that's what it is. Let's face it. Like working out really hard and like dieting hard, it's fucking torture. It really is. Like, it's not fun. Um, but if you torture yourself for 3 or 4 weeks and then you get on set and you blast through it in like 3 or 4 days, then that shit lives forever. It's forever on film. The photos are there forever. And this is going to sound nuts, but like you can actually use that little moment in time that you look your best to help you get other work, because then other producers and other directors will be like, "Oh, okay, that's what we can get out of this person if they bring their A game physically." And I hate to say it, man. A lot of people are gonna hide this bullshit and say it's not, but it's still very much like it's physical business. Okay. Hi everyone from Kim. Hi Kim, how are you? I just saw Kim not long ago. Kim was a guest at a very important party, and we thank her for being there. And the last movie that we did, not too long, was that? A couple weeks, 3 weeks ago. Oh man, time is flying. That it really was a brilliant gift. She gave me the gift of hydration. Carrot Top prop work. Mike, you know, I love you for that Carrot Top reference. Gallagher would have been accepted as well. I think he was the guy that smashed the watermelons. Is that count as is that prop? I mean, yeah, because he needs that sledge. He's dead now. Rest in peace. But he needed that sledgehammer. He needed those watermelons to be funny. So had he not been smashing melons, he wouldn't be funny. So I guess that means he's a prop comic, right? Um, okay, so
This one had a lot of stunts. There was a lot of fights that broke out in this, and fortunately, nothing bad happened to me. But I had to do a couple of weird things. Like there's a scene where it's kind of funny because I don't know that in real life this would work, but there's a scene where Eric Lutz, who I absolutely love, and we're gonna spend a little time talking about Eric down the road later in the show, but Eric plays this bad guy with a leather jacket. He's got a gun. He's shouting at everybody, ordering everyone around. He's about to shoot me and my date for the night. And what do we fight back with? Well, we throw books at him. We throw books off of a bookshelf. A book. Books, guys. Fucking books. We take them off the shelf and we throw them at the man with the gun. And what does he do? He just takes it. He just takes it. He doesn't shoot us with his pistol. He just kind of gets hit with. I don't know. Listen, there was a couple parts of this movie where I was just like, is there a way to add a little more realism for that moment? Like, couldn't he? And again, I know what you're thinking, and I don't want to nitpick one little part of the movie, but it's like, even if they had added the visual effect in, like, while he gets hit with the book, boom, boom, he gets off a couple wayward shots. At least then I could take the leap of faith that this man who's armed with a pistol isn't going to let a couple of flying fucking books stop him from killing a person, or I should say, forget about from killing a person, from accomplishing his goal of being the dubious villain that he's supposed to be that night. He's going to let a couple books stop him. He's not going to just shoot the people throwing the books. So that was one little thing. But from an actual production standpoint, it was weird because, like, Eric had a pad on, sure. But like the director's like, throw the book at him. And I'm like, well, and I'm not, Tom Brady. I don't have a rocket arm, but I'm an able-bodied guy. I work out. This is like a real heavy book. You want me to just throw it at him? Like, okay. So I remember the first time I threw it, I like hit him in the arm and he like blocks it. I'm like, you okay, Eric? You okay? And he's like, yeah. I'm fine. Tommy, I'm totally fine. And the director's like, could you throw it harder? I'm like, okay. So then I fucking really like hummed it at him, and I think I got him right in the back pad, which is where you want to hit him because that wouldn't hurt. And then I remember just another weird take. We're like, okay, now throw the book at the camera, and I'm like, oh god, like this goes against everything we're ever taught. Don't fucking throw anything at the camera. You want me to throw this book? And they're like, all right, so like aim like just a little above the. And I'm like, aim? It's a book. This isn't a dart. I'm not throwing a fucking dart. It's a goddamn book. There's fucking pages. The pages are gonna flip and flop, flip flop and fly. I can't control where this book goes, but okay. I threw the book. Fortunately, I did not strike the lens of the camera. But those are the fun, kind of weird things you get to do when you're making a movie. Like, have you ever thrown a leather-bound book at the lens of a camera before? Yes, I have, actually. Please pause for a massive jug of water. Press that button, and here we go. Sometimes I lift it up, and you get a little extra flow, and you feel like you're like, a Viking drinking from a goblet. All right. So let's see. That was that craziness. Oh, here's another little thing. Little actor hint. Don't be afraid to bring your own shoes. Shoes are often the one area where on a lower budget or an independent film, they only have so much money per person to spend, right? That's how it kind of comes down, how it breaks down. If you're a costumer, they'll tell you, and I'm not going to shoot numbers out because every number is different, but they're going to say, okay, you're the costume designer, you've got X amount to spend on this show. And then they'll go and they'll make a grid and basically break out like, all right, well, obviously we're going to spend the most money on our leads, and then like from there, there's a trickle down effect. And then it's like, by the time they get down to someone like a PD character, it's like, all right, we've got $30 to spend on PD. And it's like, it seriously could be that serious. Like, we could get him a shirt. We can get him a shirt and an option. I'll get him a shirt and a couple options and, a few different, whatever, little accoutrements. So I remember like the shirt was really cool. I like the pants. It was all takes place in one night, so you're not doing any wardrobe changes. But the shoes, I remember bringing my own boots, which of course the costumer was thrilled with because that's one less pair of shoes she's got to cut into her budget and you know dip into the coffers to get me shoes. She doesn't have to anymore. And here's the thing: you're going to be on these shoes. You're going to be on your feet for at least 12 hours, maybe 14 hours. You better have some comfortable shoes rather than getting some off the rack mystery shoes that the costumer provides for you. And they might be really terrible. And you might be upset about that around hour 10. You might be like, man, why do my feet hurt so bad? So anytime you have a chance to bring your own shoes, I say bring them. I'm a big bring your own. BYOS. Bring your own shit or shoes, however you want to say that. Because I mean, look, I bring all my, I bring a lot of wardrobe options too, because nobody knows how your clothes are going to fit better than the ones that are in your wardrobe. Ariana says, books, the best weapon known to man. The power of knowledge. The pen is mightier than the sword. Um, okay, let me just go through my notes here. I took some very copious notes, knowing that I'd be without trusty Mike, and I didn't want to jip y'all out of anything in terms of alarmed content. Let's talk about this is kind of funny. So that I said there were a lot of fights in this one, and only there was only one injury in all this fighting because people are going to get hurt, right? I mean, you can go through all the numbers and you can have the stunts coordinated the best that you can, but falling down is falling down. Swinging something at someone is swinging something at someone. Sometimes the game of inches. Sometimes you lose the game of inches, and that okay, the punch is supposed to be this far away. Well, guess what? It got a little too close, and you get clocked. So this is kind of funny. One of our stunt performers was concussed with a dinosaur, a T Rex to be exact. Uh, I think I believe it was Chris Whitcomb was swinging this dinosaur, uh, and it was kind of it's a teenage kid. It's his room, so he's still got some of his toys laying around from when he was a kid, and it's this like big plastic dinosaur. And I remember the stunt performers being like looking at the dinosaur before, feeling it. This is stunt guys do this kind of thing. I will demonstrate on my PlayStation controller here. If you say to a stunt coordinator, "Hey, can I hit the guy with this?" They'll do this. They'll go. They'll feel it. Then I've even seen this. They'll check it against their own head and they'll go, "That seems fine." And they'll hand it back to you. And that's the check. Little squeeze, little feel, little head tap. So they gave the squeeze, feel, head tap method to this dinosaur. They felt as though this creature was safe to use in combat. And that first take, it was just like swing, batter, batter. And that fucking stuntman got lit up in the head with this T Rex, the old T Rex to the brain shot. Uh, and it threw this guy for a loop. He was concussed. He was a loopy son of a bitch after he got hit with that T Rex. So it goes to show you injuries can happen at the craziest times and in the craziest conditions. But thankfully, he was good. He was good. We took it very seriously, or I should say, we. I'm saying we. I had nothing to do with it. The producers took it very seriously. Made sure he got medical attention and dealt with all concussion protocol and all that stuff. So yeah, there was one other thing that didn't make sense in this movie that I just had to note. There's this one scene where I get my ass kicked in this movie, like really beat up, you know, contusions, busted nose, bloody lip, all this stuff. And there's this one scene where like it never really explains why I'm getting beat up. They're kind of just like making an example out of me, and they pull me in the room, and the bad guys that are home invading just kick, the Eric Lutz beats the crap out of me. And then he leaves, and my girl and Chris's character enter, and I'm all banged up. And I remember I just had this line that was so strange to me, and I go, and like maybe it was supposed to be a joke. I don't know. It's just like something that like didn't to me didn't make sense. But I'm like, I go like, I didn't tell him anything, babe. Like I didn't give up any of the information. I'm like, what could he possibly tell them? He's on a blind date or he's on a first date. He's never been to this house. He doesn't know these people. Like, what would they want to get out of him? If anything, they should have beat up the kid. What are they beating me up for? Sounds like I'm getting defensive because it's me getting beat up. But like there was no reason to sacrifice Petey in this situation. He didn't. But I will say this: the makeup was great. Shout out to Sue Velasquez. Sue Velasquez did an amazing job, and she's an awesome woman, and kind of one of those people that just like when you're getting your makeup done, you got to spend a lot of time in the chair. Sometimes you're sitting there for at least 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, and they're just right up in your face. Hey, how you doing? So when there's a really friendly, really nice person that genuinely cares about how you look, how you feel, and making sure you have a good day on set, that makes the time in the makeup chair go by a lot faster. So Sue is awesome. Um, we talked a little bit about Eric Lutz, but this was one of my first times that I got to act in a movie with Eric. I've directed him, I've produced a movie where Eric acted in it, but never have we actually been on screen together. Of course, he was in my movie Vault. Eric and I go way back, so that was kind of fun, just to like have the pressure off. Because here's the thing, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but like a lot of people ask me, "What do you like better, directing or acting?" And I don't like answering that question because it's a loaded question. It's like they're two totally different things. It's like, well, what do you like better? Surfing or eating pizza? It's like what? They're two totally what? You can't compare them. They're very different, although they seem very much in the same world. They're so different. So a lot of people will ask me like what I like better. This is one of the cases where acting I do like acting better because when I'm on a movie and I'm playing Petey, right? I'm not playing King Lear. Okay. I don't have fucking massive monologues to memorize. On the downtime when I'm just hanging out, it's a lot more chill. Look, I can just sit down and have a conversation with Eric and just bullshit with him, and we can spend a half an hour just talking between setups. Whereas if I was directing a movie, I would never be able to sit down with Eric and talk to him for a half an hour or an hour. They'd be like, "Where the fuck is Tommy?" And it would be as if like the house is, it's the house is burning because it's like the director can't just disappear for an hour. You kidding me? So you don't have that flexibility to just like, oh, let me catch up with an old friend while they light this scene. Can't be doing that when you're directing. So that was kind of nice on this one, getting a chance to like spend time with Eric and chill with him and a lot of great people. This movie looks really great. It's got a great look, and that's because it had a really solid veteran director of photography, guy by the name of Brad Rushing was the DP. Um, and also shout out to director Matthew Cohen. This was his first movie. I know how hard it is to make a first movie. It's one of the most challenging things you can do. So as a first feature film, this is a very, very impressive entrance into the world of film. So, congratulations to him with this one. Julian Lewis was my first AD on this last feature, and he was the AD on this movie. I got to work with Christopher Bai, who is actually going to shoot my pilot that I talked about in the beginning of the show, and he also shot the last feature that I did. Just a lot of great people. Music was done by David Bateman, who I've talked about on this show before. And what's cool about David is, again, he's a genre bender. He can really work in multiple different genres. This is kind of like a crime, action, adventure fun. And he brought a lot of that kind of feel and tone to the music. So very dynamic. And the last kind of crew member I'll mention, because it segues into our location, is a guy by the name of Jim Vitale, who Jim is the key grip on the movie. But also, the majority of the film was shot at the family's house location, the main family in the movie. And that's the same house that Jim lives in. And it's a sick fucking house. Please pause. It's a sick house. It's massive. It's got, probably 5 or 6 bedrooms, probably at least 6,000 square feet. It's got a pool. It's got a hot tub. It's got a goddamn water fountain out front. It has a like full-sized outbuilding that's like a bar. Like you'd think you're in an actual establishment. Clearly, just like a bachelor pad is an understatement. It's like a bachelor super center that Jim lives in here, and it's pretty crazy. So we had a lot of fun at this house. There were overnights, and these weren't like 3 to 3 overnights. These were like the legit, like 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. to 5 a.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., like really, really challenging hours. So there'd be a lot of, sleeping during the day and kind of just getting up, shoving a Red Bull down your throat and getting to work and getting right into it. And I remember this is kind of a funny story, but we're like sleeping during the day, and I remember one of the days at the hotel, the fire alarm went off at like fucking probably like 1 p.m. And I think that night we had to work at like 5. So like it's basically like that shit going off in the middle of the night. It'd be like the alarm going off at 3:30 in the morning when you're on our sleep schedule. Most of the people at the hotel didn't give a shit. They probably weren't sleeping. They were whatever. They went outside. But our entire crew, like dragging ass out in the middle of a dead sleep. Everyone's in their, pajamas, sweatpants, whatever they could throw on, shorts. It's a little chilly outside, even though it's June. It's like, it's like we're like just out of a dead sleep and have to sit out there for like an hour. It was one of those things where like it was like an hour and a half, because like for whatever reason the fire department had to come and shut it all down. So I remember that was a really awful night, because we were all just wrecked, and we lost about a good 2 hours sleep, and then try going back to sleep for like that last hour that you got to get up at like 4 p.m. It ain't fun. So there was a couple of little snafus. I remember having this one really crazy back and forth night that like it's kind of funny because uh, this is something that I would have jumped up and down. Like the 19-year-old me would have jumped up and down to have this opportunity. And that's kind of how I framed it and how I got through it. But I remember one of the nights I had to work unalarmed until about like whatever, whatever, 4 or 5 in the morning. And then I had a 7 a.m. call time in Rhode Island on the movie Sins of a Preacher's Wife. So I literally worked all night long, got in my car, drove to Rhode Island. Like, I think I took a quick shower at home, and then boom, got right back to set, changed into another costume, played another character, worked a whole day on that set, came home, and traveled back to Connecticut for that night of work. So it was like almost like 36 straight hours of playing two different parts, two parts twice, one part once in the middle, and kind of just acting for seemingly three days straight, but it was really 2. But again, like you can't complain about shit like that. That's like that's what we do. That's like why we do what we do, and that's something that I was fired up about it. I was like, "You kidding me? Like this is a fucking run." But it gets back to what I said a little while ago, where like this business is so weird. Like it'll be so fucking quiet sometimes, and you won't hear anything. You won't get any calls, no jobs, nothing. Then of course it's like, yeah, let's have these both happen at the same fucking time. That would be awesome. That would be really great. Thank you. Again, you can't be upset about it. You just got to lean into it and be happy that you're getting the work. The last night of this movie was a lot of fun because, like I said, we're at this big, like crazy bachelor pad with pools, hot tubs, just a lot of fun things for you to play with. And we wrapped at like 6 or 7 in the morning, and then the champagne came out, and I remember pool party, early morning pool party, all kinds of grilling. The guy who owned the house, brought out all the breakfast, bacon, sausages, eggs. We had like this whole crazy breakfast buffet the morning of wrap. And then this crazy pool party kicked off that literally went until, I'm not bullshitting you, like 2 in the afternoon. So like we partied from like, we worked all night, and then partied from 7 a.m. to like 1:32 in the afternoon. And then I like people just slowly started to like drop, and you'd see like it became like a Civil War battlefield where like people just, and I'm not saying like this wasn't because people were, passed out, bombed, drunk, or whatever. It's just like people were just exhausted. So slowly, like people were just like falling asleep on the grass as the morning continued. And, by 1 o'clock, it was like, okay, it's probably that time. Um, so, on a personal note, to wind this thing down, I was going through some shit, as I said at the top of the show on this movie, and I don't want to get into it too much, but it was just not a great time for me. We all have our little stumbles or little bumps in the road. Just ain't feeling right at that time. And I remember feeling really down about it and thinking like, oh man, I gotta like work now, and like, how am I gonna like perform when I feel this way, and like, what am I gonna do? Uh, and I really did learn that like when you have those kind of feelings trapped inside, it's important to use that pain as an artist and fuel yourself. And I know that sounds cliche. I know that sounds easier said than done. But if you can really focus on what you're doing and on the work, and you put it all into that, you channel all of that energy into what you're doing, you can pull from some of that pain, especially when you're a performer. And it's one of those things where like sometimes that painful time is temporary, and you look back, and I thought that this movie was going to have like a scar on it where like, oh man, every time I watch this movie I'm going to be thinking about how I felt so shitty during that run. And when I watched the movie, surprisingly enough, I just saw it when it came out a couple months ago on Tubi. I didn't have that kind of painful feeling. There wasn't a scar. There wasn't this like, I thought I would, oh, that's that time when this happened. And I remember thinking this at that moment. None of that shit happened. All I thought about were the fun times, the people that were there for me that like kind of picked me up when I was feeling kind of bad. And again, the experience, the fact that like that human challenge, like you're not always going to have your best stuff. You're not always going to have your A game, but you have to get through it. Like you can't fucking quit because you don't feel good about something. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, not to give myself a self high five, but looking back, it was nice to be like, yeah, you know what? That was a shitty time and we got through it, and we won in that situation. Like that we're the winner at the end of the day, because 6 months later, a year later, I don't give a fuck about all that shit. And I made a nice contribution to the film, and I was proud of that. So don't ever let the bad times interfere with your work. I know it's not easy. Find a way to fuel that, channel that, put it into your work. Um, and you'll find that you might be able to kick it into a new gear that you didn't realize that you had. So that said, I think that about does it for Alarmed. I would love for you to all check it out. Like I said, you can stream it right now for free on Tubi. Um, and I will say this, just enjoy the movie, have fun with it. It's lighthearted, it's fun. It's definitely the kind of movie that you can just like put on, relax, get through it with a smile on your face. Next week, speaking of smiles on your face, we're going to be talking about a movie that I had so much fun making. It's actually technically a Dan Hunter film. Dan, how he gets. That's my alter ego, if you didn't know. It's a kids movie called Mr. Birthday, and we're going to be talking all about that. Mikey Messier was also in that movie, so we will welcome him back with open arms next week. Although I have had fun just chatting with y'all. I do miss Mike, and I'm excited to have him back. So thank you, everyone, for sticking with me today on this very unique solo and action show. I would love for you to all do me a big favor. It would be huge if you could share this, put it on a story, post it on a Facebook page, uh, put it on a sticker, and slap it on a men's bathroom stall. Whatever you can do to spread the word about the And Action Filmmaking Podcast, my YouTube channel. Like I said, pushing really hard now that I'm over that 1,000 subscriber mark. So if you could share that out, it would mean the world to me. Watch them Johnny and Clyde behind the scenes videos that'll be coming your way. And be well. We'll see you next week, next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern. And Action episode 39 will be coming your way with Mr. Birthday. Thanks, guys. Have an awesome week. I'll see you later. I'm going to drink this whole bottle before the end of the day. Bye.